Welcome to The Better Life with Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston. Join Dr. Pinkston today as she teaches you how an integrative approach to health, combining holistic and contemporary medical information, can lead you to the better life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston.
Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston and back with another episode. And today, this is here in Texas. This is the mecca of allergy season. We have a terrible winter season. We have a terrible spring season. It's oak, and then we get into grasses and all. And I know this is a nationwide problem. And it's a problem because it's tough to battle the immune system. The immune system is involved in this, and we need to focus on a few things that will help you address from the root cause, but also something that will help you from a symptomatic perspective. And so today I am bringing you from Magna Pharmaceuticals, Dr. Warren Lesser, who has been supporting me for, I guess, about the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, which I greatly appreciate. You've seen his commercials and some of the important products that we brought to you, treating MTHFR and other things, but we're going to have him on again to address a couple of issues. I know you guys have a lot of new things that you're coming out with, and then we want to talk about your staple today with allergy season coming up. Welcome in, Dr. Lesser. It's always great to see you. I appreciate you being on.
Well, thank you very much. It's always good to be with you and on your show. I haven't cleaned off my desk, but it was full of papers. All those papers are on the floor, which is one of the great things about video presentations. You can't see the rest of this office.
That's right.
I thought, well, a clean desk is a sign of a sick mind, so I guess you'll figure that out.
That's so true, man. If you clean my room and ask me where something is, I'm lost. It has to be a mega mess for me to absolutely find something. I'm with you on that. Yeah. No, I'm glad to have you in. Well, tell us a little bit about some of the new things you've got going on. And again, we mentioned allergy season, so right. I know there's a lot of sufferers out there.
Right. I'm going to jump into that in just a minute. Let's see, should I put my first slide on?
Yeah, we got you. There we go.
I'm so excited because the immune system is just incredible. There's no way that anybody understands all the complexities of the immune system. In fact, we don't even understand all the complexities in one single cell. That's how awesome. When I think about the immune system, I kind of get chills, and I'm not going to try to wax philosophically or religiously, but I can't help but think of Psalm 139, 13 and 14, where the psalmist writes, "For you formed my inward parts, right. You covered me in my mother's womb. Yeah. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." And we're exploring a subject today where I think if people look at the finer details of the human body, it's truly amazing the way we're made. Now, sometimes things go wrong. We're going to talk about that as well. But
a lot of things go wrong. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. But we live in a broken world anyway. We don't live in a perfect world. So those things are to be expected. Yeah. But before I really get into the details of the immune system, I would like to go to the next slide and talk about a couple of products that we have. Now at Magna, we're a small company. We're a regional company. But the products we come out with have been proven for many years, in some cases decades. And the products that we have, the ingredients, are often abandoned by big pharma because they're off patent. And the products may not be popular enough or big enough to warrant generic intrusion into the marketplace. Here's one perfect example that is an amazing product. It's for allergies, hay fever, upper respiratory symptoms. And it's called Stay Hist AD. Now, the ingredients are in some ways unique. Chlorcyclazine is one of the oldest piperazine antihistamines known to mankind. It's actually the older brother or older sister to cetirizine, which people know as Zyrtec. But in this product, we don't use a lot of pseudoephedrine. The products that were previously prescription products that are now over the counter, for example, Zyrtec. I'm not bad-mouthing any of these. I'm just trying to differentiate. Yeah. For example, Zyrtec D, Claritin D, Allegra D. They all have, for example, they have 120 or 240 milligrams of pseudoephedrine a day. With Stay Hist AD, the patient can get as little as 30 milligrams or go up to 180. So it's a lot less Sudafed. And the benefit there is that we live in a society where so many people have vasoconstriction.
Yes.
and blood pressure issues. So we really don't want to give a lot of Sudafed, because what does that do? Sudafed is a vasoconstrictor because it's a nasal decongestant.
Right.
And you don't want to overdose people with pseudoephedrine for sure. So this product has got a unique antihistamine and a unique pseudoephedrine dosage. When we look at some literature evidence, Goodman and Gilman have a textbook for physicians called The Pharmacological Basis of Therapeutics. And they talk about chlorcyclazine as having a more prolonged action than many antihistamines, and that even though it's a first-generation antihistamine, it has low incidence of drowsiness. It's the only one we could find ever among first-generation antihistamines. For example, chlorpheniramine, diphenhydramine. They're sleepers, but not chlorcyclazine. In fact, if you look at we looked at the trial where the company introduced chlorcyclazine many years ago, and the trial indicated that the incidence of drowsiness was less than 3%. We don't hear of people who complain about stayist AD and drowsiness.
Nice.
And compare it to the cetirizine package insert. In their own package insert, they compared with placebo. Now, we weren't in the same trial, so in fairness to them, but they did report 11% and 14% somnolence, which is drowsiness, compared to. So really, even though we're a first-generation antihistamine, what we do offer are anticholinergic actions. So that means drying. And when you say drying, people think, well, I'm going to get dried out, I'm going to bleed, whatever. No, this is drying of excess secretions that run down the trachea. And really what happens at nighttime in the supine position when people are lying down trying to go to sleep. One lady told me, my husband's driving me crazy because he has this post-nasal drip, he has this tickly cough. Yeah. Well, the newer antihistamines aren't going to do anything for that because they don't have any anticholinergic action. Correct. The problem with the first-generation antihistamines is they do, but they make you sleepy, but not this one. So it's pretty cool. I mentioned the lower dose of Sudafed. We can adjust the dosage to the needs of the patient. When I have mild allergy symptoms, I take this myself. In fact, all the products that Magna has, all the products that we have, we would take ourselves. We do take ourselves. I don't take them all, but when I need them. But I take a half a tablet. I'm not a little guy, but I can also take. We hear of patients who take a half a tablet twice a day, one tablet a day, one tablet or half a tablet twice a day, or one half or one tablet 3 times a day. So you can basically titrate the dosage to the patient's needs. And one of the problems with antihistamines, especially first-generation antihistamines, is that there's something called a therapeutic window where the blood level has to stay within the minimum effective dose and the maximum tolerated dose. With antihistamines, if they pop up above that maximum tolerated dose, even if it's for a little while, people will complain of drowsiness. So that's not inherent in this particular antihistamine. We don't see it. And the cost is very reasonable. They can buy 30 tablets for about $27 at the pharmacist now. We are not a national company. Wholesalers all across the country have Stayist AD. Pharmacists can get the Stayist AD next day. So that's not a long time to wait.
So they just need to ask. They just need to ask their pharmacist to carry it, or
right. It's behind the counter because it has pseudoephedrine. You can't get it out in front of the counter.
So you have to ask ask.
So that's why you have to. Now, if they go on our website, we do have a provision with a pharmacy that will ship to them, but they have to give their driver's license and so forth.
Just like at the pharmacy, though. Same thing.
They do as well. But at magnaweb.com, they can maybe check it out if they can't find it anywhere. So the complement to Stayist AD is Stayist T. We just came out with this product about 60 days ago. Nice. This has an old antihistamine called Tripolidine. Now, Tripolidine, for us old-timers, we know this product is Actifit, which is the number one selling antihistamine back in the 80s. But this too is a first-generation antihistamine, so it's got good anticholinergic action. You do get the drying. But you do get, with Tripolidine, you get more drowsiness than you do with chlorcyclazine. Therefore, what's kind of revived this product is that in the Journal of Clinical Pharmacology not too long ago, in 2021, they came out and they talked about a double-blind study where they did compare Tripolidine with placebo, about 200 patients, not an enormous trial, but they stated that Tripolidine has a shorter half-life. than some of the longer antihistamines out there that do make you drowsy. So that means that patients can take this product. They reported that the half-life is 3.3 hours. So if you take it at bedtime, for all intents and purposes, it's going to be fully metabolized and out of your body by the morning. And the investigator, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said by the time you wake up, it should be gone, right? So that's good.
Right, which is what you want. You don't want to wake up feeling like you've got an antihistamine hangover. Mm-hmm. But they talked about adjusted sleep disturbance index was better than placebo, of course. Sleep latency was faster. They fell asleep more quickly. And that patients reported that in the morning they woke up refreshed and went through the day without feeling groggy. The investigator said this is a product that can help people sleep and function without drowsiness, without side effects. So the summary on Stay as T is you take one tablet at bedtime or 30 minutes before, helps patients get ahead of their allergy symptoms so that they're drying at night. So when they wake up, they're a little bit ahead of the game the next day. You want to stay ahead of your allergy symptoms, really. Has anticholinergic action, so it helps with postnasal drip and the tickly cough while they're lying down on their backs, trying to sleep. Fall asleep faster, sleep better, wake up refreshed, no antihistamine hangover, and no antihistamine drowsiness during the day. And they buy it from us directly, so we can ship this directly, ship it out the same day. Costs $9.95 for 30 tablets at magnetweb.com. So if one tablet does you well, you can take, it's 33 cents a night. I take this product myself. It works. It flat out works. So we have two products here, Stay as AD and Stay as T, that hopefully can be of beneficial use or symptom relief for some patients. Excellent. Now, in terms of our immune system outline, I know we have a lot of information here to go through, and we can stop at any time, and hopefully it's interesting and helpful.
Always.
We're going to go through and talk really about short-term versus long-term inflammation and immune response, acute versus systemic, or systemic is the whole body, acute is local. Then we're going to talk about the mediators of inflammation, and a lot of people are talking about unstable free radicals. We hear about that all the time.
Right.
And then we're going to talk about where they meet, where the unstable free radicals meet unstable antioxidants, but that's what makes them so effective. And we're going to give an abundance of peer-reviewed literature. There's some literature that would be contrary to what I'm telling you, but there is a plethora of positive literature on alpha-lipoic acid, CoQ10, N-acetylcysteine, known as NAC, and of course, in the past, we've discussed L-methylfolate and methylcobalamin. And in fact, in this presentation, if you go to the references I've provided and then go to their references that relate to this topic, there are over 1,600 peer-reviewed medical journals that I'm going to be talking about. So this is really a meta-analysis of published literature in peer-reviewed medical journals.
I.e. good science.
Yes, indeed. That's all we want.
Good science.
We don't want fake science.
Absolutely.
Or fake claims.
Which is what most people get these days. They get a lot of fake science, so it's nice to have a straight arrow there. Right,
and my background, I'm a pharma guy. I came out of, I was with the Boots Company for years. They discovered the propionic acid derivatives. Ibuprofen is one of them.
Nice.
And so I come from a pharma background. I never drank the dietary supplement Kool-Aid, so to speak.
Good.
But there's a small number that I'm totally convinced empirically through my own experience, through also hearing from physicians and nurse practitioners that these products really do help. So let's go with a few definitions. The first thing to realize is that our bodies are exposed to over 60,000, just think about that number, 60,000 pathogens a day. And if our immune systems aren't working, we are toast. Wow. So we're going to look at the pathogens and the free radicals that come into our bodies, and we're going to look at those, and also injuries, from a short-term versus long-term, acute versus chronic, or local versus systemic. We're going to look at the mediators of inflammation, those chemicals that cause inflammation to happen, both in the short term and then conversely in the long term, which is not so good. And then we're going to talk about what can we do? Well, we can take antioxidants. The first thing I would like to mention is give a brief COVID update. Then we have a lot of questions about COVID, and COVID COVID-19 is absolutely relevant to this conversation.
Yes.
So there's a lot of different names for COVID, and NIH officials have mentioned a lot of aliases. Coronavirus 2019, SARS-CoV-2, for example, COVID-19. It's interesting that COVID-19, there was about 7 million deaths worldwide. I say about because the literature you look at, it's very difficult to track the actual number of people who died, cause and effect from COVID-19.
Right.
Because often there are comorbidities. People would get the COVID-19 virus, but they also have heart conditions. They have respiratory issues. They're asthmatics. They're COPDers. Just a number of comorbidities. And so the 7 million deaths we think is accurate. 1.5 million in North America. That includes Canada and Mexico. Contrast that with SARS-CoV-1, which is back in 2003, where only 8,000 people died. So this is much more serious than the first round of COVID. And the main reason is long COVID-19, also known as, here's a few names for long COVID: post-COVID-19 syndrome, chronic COVID-19, long haulers. And the way they differentiate the COVID classifications is that acute COVID is up to 4 weeks, symptomatic COVID 4 to 12 weeks, but post-COVID-19 syndrome is greater than 12 weeks. Symptoms that go on and on, not explained by an alternative diagnosis. Okay. So the approach to treating COVID, and this is really good for almost everyone to know, it's the amount of virus is high in the first week and then decreases sharply in the second week. So antiviral therapy, we now, thank God, have antiviral therapies. They should start in the first or second stage, i.e., when you first get COVID, up to 12 weeks. After 12 weeks, however, the treatment approach should really change in that the problem is no longer the virus. It's no longer COVID-19. It's the immune system. Right. The immune system has gone wrong. And the longer this goes on, the worse we face respiratory issues, cardiovascular issues, etc. So it's something known as a cytokine storm, which we'll talk about, I think, on the next
Would you
slide.
say it's almost like an autoimmune response? Like, the virus is gone, but the immune system's activated now. Now the immune system is attacking this person, and it's like it was turned on and can't be turned off. Would that be the correct way to?
Exactly. Perfect explanation. And it's the same thing going back to allergic rhinitis. The first time you're exposed to pollen, you don't really have an allergic reaction. But maybe the second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, 20th time, 200th time, all of a sudden something goes wrong with the immune system, and it's trying to protect us, but it's almost exacerbating. It's a self-perpetuating cycle. Oh yeah, exactly. Gotcha. But when you look at the acute or symptomatic stages of COVID-19, and there have been symptoms and descriptions of COVID-19 all over the board. People say, I wonder if I have COVID-19. The most common symptoms are fever, not always fever, cough, shortness of breath, and myalgia, what's that? Muscle aches and fatigue, so severe fatigue. But the clinical manifestations of COVID-19 vary from asymptomatic, where you hardly feel anything at all, especially now since we have herd immunity, and something really bad called ARDS, which is can be fatal, often is fatal. So that's where ARDS comes into play on the more severe long COVID syndrome patients, which is, so if you think about long COVID, it's similar to chronic fatigue syndrome. Chronic fatigue syndrome is where people are just tired all the time. I sleep, I just slept 12 hours. What's wrong with me? I shouldn't feel good. No, I'm tired. I'm just tired. Goes on and on. And fibromyalgia is also similar to long COVID, where there's just unexplained muscle aches. My body hurts all over. And so that's part of those two. CFS and fibromyalgia are similar to long COVID symptoms. Yeah. But long COVID also manifests in depression and in sleep disturbances and in cognitive and mental disturbances. Yep. I can't think straight. My memory's not as good. Also manifests in chest and joint pain, palpitations. Your heart starts beating out of your chest.
Yep.
I
I actually got AFib. I truly feel like that. I had AFib about November, about 2.5 years ago or so. And I absolutely believe it came 2 weeks before I had COVID. And I believe I was healthy otherwise, exercising in great shape, barely taking anything medication wise. And then all of a sudden I developed AFib. And I swear to you, it was COVID related.
Right. It happens. It's reported for sure.
Yeah.
But the more serious, now we also, I was right here, we were talking about people report dysfunctions of smell and taste, ongoing cough, headache, even gastrointestinal dysfunction, diarrhea, constipation can be a part of it. Now, the more serious long COVID syndrome results in ARDS, which is a pulmonary edema. That means your lungs fill up with fluid, and hypoxemia, which means that there's low oxygen as a result in the blood because the lungs aren't able to exchange the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. So as a result of those as well, your heart's working harder, so it goes into cardiovascular complications in addition to the heart working harder because of systemic inflammation. We have the endothelium of the endothelial lining in our vasculature and our blood vessels becomes inflamed, and you get fat deposits, you get plaque, and it's harder for the heart to pump the blood through. So where we're going with this is that there are two supplements, and there's pretty good research now to show that ALA, or alpha lipoic acid, and CoQ10 together can provide a synergistic effect in the treatment of chronic COVID syndrome. And we can't say that these substances are indicated because we haven't done the clinical trials and we haven't gone to FDA saying, well, these are indications for a product. So we don't say that. What I'm reporting here is that in the literature, there's enough out there to say that if a person has chronic COVID syndrome, then they should really look at supplementation with CoQ10 and alpha lipoic acid specifically.
Nice.
So,
agreed.
From a real world standpoint, this is what we're hearing from physicians. We deal with a lot of providers every day. And this is kind of a summary where they're saying symptoms are much milder now than they were. In fact, COVID-19 now isn't as bad as the flu or RSV, what they're seeing. Mm-hmm. There is a hospitalist who told me that most of the long COVID stuff I see, this is a quote from her, is something called POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, where the patient stands up, all right, so that's your posture. The blood pressure falls, the patient passes out and is admitted for a workup. But everything checks out, and turns out they've been having these drop attacks ever since COVID. So, for example, one patient she cited in her late 40s was a non-smoker, ran several miles a day. Now it just has trouble catching his breath on. There's actually a guy upon really just mild exertion. And then the other thing we're hearing is that physicians are seeing a lot of pulmonary fibrosis, which is common with chronic systemic inflammation because your body's building up fibrous tissue, especially in the lungs. They don't feel the same. They complain of headaches. They have prolonged fatigue, loss of smell. Oxygen dependency is very serious. And these are patients who had no history of smoking or asthma. And it all started, as you said, Dr. Pinkston, after, as you did you said about your atrial fib.
Absolutely.
After a bad COVID episode, then some of these symptoms were prevalent and continued.
Absolutely.
So it's important now. We were talking about systemic inflammation, immune response to the virus that infiltrates our bodies. That virus then precipitates something called reactive oxygen species, ROS, which is a free radical. That's a systemic condition.
Yep.
So to differentiate the mediators, where we're going right now is we're talking about mediators of inflammation, the actual chemicals. We can't figure out how to treat an overreaction of the immune system if we can't figure out what chemical mediators are causing that overreaction.
Correct.
So I did mention the cytokine storm, but in the local group, prostaglandins are the ones that you mostly hear about. For example, on this picture right here, a sprained finger. what have we all sprained? I mean, we've all sprained an ankle, a toe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whatever. And what did we experience? The 5 signs and symptoms of inflammation: heat, redness, swelling, pain, and loss of function. Okay, so that's going on locally. Sprained finger, heat. Heat is from increased blood flow. The body sends more blood to that area to provide nutrients and also to help clean up the damage, the debris.
Right.
And then the heat is also from the warmth is not only from the increased blood flow, but it's also from the exudate that comes out of the blood vessels. The exudate has, for example, white blood cells, monocytes, and neutrophils to clean up the debris. And then also it's carrying more oxygen for repair. And then also pain, right? Pain is because the nerves have been damaged in the injury.
Yes.
And then the loss of function because of the swelling. So ibuprofen, which I mentioned earlier, works to block if you read the package insert, we believe it works to block the prostaglandin synthetase enzyme system. That means we block more prostaglandins that are being overmade. Now contrast prostaglandins and cytokines. In these other photos over here, this is long-term local inflammation. Right. So this person's finger on the left is going to get better, but these people on the right, they're not going to get better.
It's more of a rheumatoid, kind of like I've got going on here. It's just chronic long-term, correct?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. Wow.
Yeah, well, it is what it is.
Well, I mentioned earlier about one of the problems with COVID is the fibrous tissue in the lungs. So one of the issues with chronic inflammation is fibrous tissue, and that's what happens with rheumatoid arthritis. You can see how these fingers are all deformed. Right. And yes. To your point, Dr. Pinkston, this is an autoimmune disease. And that's the difference between short-term and long-term. Long-term, you're chronic inflammation, and you've got to approach the treatment of the patient in a totally different way before hopefully it gets this badly for the patient.
Correct.
And so, but going back to systemic, to differentiate from local, there are actually, and talking about chemical mediators, there are actually a family of 38 interleukins that are cytokines. Mm-hmm. We're not going to go. Who cares? We're not going to go through all those.
Yes.
And there's tumor necrosis factor and some other families of cytokines. And what they do, they're supposed to help control inflammation if germs or other substances come into our bodies. Right. But in the case of COVID-19 and in other diseases, the results of cytokine storm. There's too many cytokines, too much inflammation, and a cytokine storm down at the bottom here can be precipitated by free radicals coming into our bodies. So, and not being controlled. Right. So, the unstable free radicals meet unstable antioxidant boosters, and we get an offset. And that's what we're looking for. So this is in the context of systemic inflammation now. And a free radical is a molecule that's missing an electron from the outer shell. So what does that do? That makes that free radical molecule unstable. And they go around our bodies and they look for any kind of cell, could be skin or blood or any organ cell, where they go and they basically attack a healthy cell to try to steal an electron from that cell. And the sources, now exogenous means sources of free radicals that come into our bodies that we don't happen from within ourselves. Tobacco smoke, actually not alcohol, but excessive alcohol. I should really clarify that. Yep. Industrial solvents, some metals, air, water pollution, pesticides.
Correct.
But endogenously, we also cause free radicals to happen by eating too much fat, having an improper diet, not enough fruits and vegetables. We don't get enough exercise, which helps our body fight off free radicals through something called myokines. We talked about that in a previous session. Stress can cause free radicals, insufficient sleep. And what this all, from a cardiovascular standpoint, all of these factors right here lead to damaged endothelium. Damaged endothelium means that's the inside of our pipes, our blood vessels. So think about it. If your pipes in your house are occluded, right, the water's not going to run as freely. Now, whatever's pushing that water, now I'm not talking about a water tower that's pretty passive, but I'm talking about in the case of the body where the heart's pushing. Well, the heart's pushing blood through arteries that are no longer this wide, now they're this wide because they're included with plaque and garbage because of stuff we put into our bodies, also our environment. And not only does it damage the endothelium of our cardiovascular system, but it also weakens our immune system at the DNA level, down to the DNA level. And what are we talking about there? Well, we're talking about cancer cells. So when you have a weakened immune system, because of all the free radicals that are coming into our bodies, what results not only cancer, but cataracts, I mentioned heart and cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative diseases, for example, Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, related to oxidative stress. And then you mentioned, Dr. Pinkston, autoimmune diseases. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Autoimmune diseases.
No, I was agreeing.
Yeah. Okay. So skin is psoriasis, digestive diseases like celiac disease or Crohn's disease, cardiovascular vasculitis, which we talked about, inflammation of the blood vessels, musculoskeletal. We mentioned rheumatoid arthritis, but there's also evidence that fibromyalgia is an autoimmune disease as well as myasthenia gravis. Endocrine disease, mostly diabetes mellitus 1. And nervous system diseases such as multiple sclerosis, even I didn't know this until I was doing my research. Restless leg syndrome is thought to be an autoimmune disorder. So
yes, and part of it too. Yes, and then Hashimoto's. A lot of people are suffering from thyroid disorders these days. To go back to the endocrine side of things. So with diabetes is the thyroid, and Graves' disease or Hashimoto's, autoimmune thyroid disorders.
Wow, right. So I guess the bottom line is on this is that unstable free radicals are really busters of our immune system, whereas antioxidants are really boosters. And that's good news because antioxidants from a molecular standpoint are also missing an electron. But there's one key difference in the personality between, you want to use an anthropomorphism, like a free radical has a personality, but free radicals look for other cells to basically pirate or take an electron from, whereas antioxidants look for free radicals to give an electron to. And that, what does that do? It makes the free radical pretty much inert. It neutralizes them, and they're even Steven. So free radicals will dance with about anybody, but antioxidants just want to dance with free radicals, and that's good news for us.
And it is. And you know what, Dr. Lissa, this is actually, I think, probably a pretty good time to take a little bit of a break. I want for people to understand where they can find information on you. And so hold that thought for just a moment. But I want people to know where they can find you. Then we're going to take a short little break for your commercial, actually. And then we'll be right back and we will continue on this. So where can people find you?
Well, online, it's magnaweb.com. Very simple. Magna, M-A-G-N-A, web.com. So that's all. And then we're located
and to add to that simplicity.
Pardon me?
Yes, sir. And to add to that simplicity, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but to add to the simplicity, actually, you can just go straight to my website too at drpbetterlife.com. You can find all of our previous shows because we've done a couple now, which is wonderful. And a lot more information on the magnaweb.com or Magna Pharmaceuticals. And so, Dr. Lesser, let's take a moment and step away, and then we'll be right back.
Depression, anxiety, low energy, weakness, these are just some symptoms of low B12 levels. And the absorbable B12 folate supplement that's helping people declare victory over depression symptoms is De Novo Plus B12 by Magna Pharmaceuticals. Patients with symptoms of depression often exhibit low levels of folate and vitamin B12. The human body needs sufficient folate intake to produce the essential neurotransmitters serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. These neurotransmitters alleviate feelings of sadness, anxiety, and gloom. What makes De Novo Plus B12 so successful? De Novo Plus B12 contains readily absorbable folate and B12. That means it's more successful at correcting the root cause of your deficiency, not just the symptoms. Whether you are suffering with low energy, depression, fatigue, or anxiety, you owe it to yourself to learn more at magnaweb.com. That's magnaweb.com. Please let us know at checkout that you heard about De Novo Plus B12 on The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston.
Thank you.
So there you go. It's nice, isn't it?
Very nice, yes.
So I'm sorry. I hated to interrupt you there, but I wanted to make sure that we get all those pieces in. So, sir, please continue exactly where you were. We were talking about free radicals and a big dance. That's for sure.
Right. No problem. Thank you. So the free radicals are basically neutralized by antioxidants. And we talked about, I just want to include this slide just because this is a good visual representation of oxidative stress on the heart.
Yes.
So when we have prolonged systemic inflammation, it results in atherosclerosis. Because of the inflammation, our blood vessels build up plaque, and that makes it harder for our hearts to pump. And that's why we get to hypertension. What's hypertension? Heart has to beat harder to push the blood through because our tissues need the oxygen. Overworked hearts lead to what? Heart failure. And heart failure is sometimes complicated or hard to predict because of variations in blood flow to the heart. Ischemia, for example, and reperfusion. So I think this is a great slide to really depict on what's going on and the causes of oxidative stress, systemic inflammation, and how we hurt our hearts when we try when we do things that aren't in our best interest from a health standpoint. So on this slide right here, we talked about, we want to go now and talk about a few specific antioxidants that we decided to come out with because there's so much information and so much research that supports the efficacy and the safety of these antioxidants. And the first one, I mentioned it previously, is ALA, alpha-lipoic acid. This is in our Nufola. And the efficacy is based on the ability to directly scavenge ROS, reactive oxygen species, chelate metals that come into our body from our environment, and then react and regenerate other antioxidants such as glutathione and vitamins E and C, which are anti-inflammatory. And as you'll see, alpha-lipoic acid is anti-inflammatory as well. It is unique. ALA is in a couple ways unique among antioxidants. And this is why it's so important. That's why there's so much research now on ALA. There's a concept or a word called amphiphilic. Amphiphilic means that ALA can move through water or fat natures or environments. So that means that ALA can permeate tissues throughout our body, in the plasma, in the blood plasma. It can actually go through the cell membrane and work inside the cell, which is where it's called the cytoplasm. Well, that's where the free radicals are working. So you need the ALA inside the cell to counteract the damage being caused by free radicals. So the wide distribution enables ALA to interfere with several signaling pathways so that the signaling pathways get altered by the free radicals and things start going wrong in our bodies. And what the ALA is doing is it's interfering with the adverse signaling pathways in our bodies. We mentioned it, I think we mentioned, or maybe I didn't, it restores glutathione, which strengthens the immune system. ALA has its own direct anti-inflammatory effect. It improves endothelial function. How does it do it? Well, it increases nitric oxide. What does nitric oxide do? Nitric oxide is a vasodilator. So what are we doing? We're talking about a society where a lot of us are living with vasoconstriction. Now we have vasodilatation. So from the nitric oxide. It also, ALA improves mitochondrial function. Now, maybe all of us remember mitochondria from our high school anatomy and physiology class. And mitochondria, we learned, was the powerhouse of the cell. But what we didn't learn, or what I didn't learn back then, is that there are two processes in mitochondria, one called fusion and one called fission. There's more than one mitochondria in a cell. There can be many. And that's from fusion, from basically a replication of mitochondria that increases the life of the cell and reduces cell death, called apoptosis. So mitochondria, the more mitochondria, the better within our cells, and that's what ALA does. Keep going. ALA helps control blood sugar. These are all research. helps improve cholesterol, helps reduce nerve damage. And in patients who have diabetes or peripheral neuropathy, diabetic peripheral neuropathy, and especially in their legs, I had one guy, poor guy, told me, I stepped on a board, had a nail in it. I'm walking around with a board. I didn't even know it was in my foot. And it's terrible.
Didn't even feel it. So true.
Didn't even feel it. So I mean, they're losing nerve function. They're losing capillary function. So you don't have the blood flowing down to your foot. So your nerves cannot possibly be repaired. Alpha-lipoic acid helps. And then the other thing that's really interesting now, this is a little bit controversial, so I don't want to represent this as being irrefutable. But there is some pretty good research that I choose to believe it, because if it's true, I want to believe it, may slow aging and prolong lifespan. I'm actually 95. You didn't know that.
Absolutely.
Telomere attrition is common, is a common feature of people that get older, okay? And telomere attrition, in other words, telomeres they're the ones that protect the ends of the chromosomes. And our chromosomes determine the life of the cell, the life of the tissue. If your cells live longer, if your tissues, here's logic, cell lives longer, tissue lives longer, organs work longer, system survives longer, human body, i.e. the system, right?
Makes sense, right?
It
Makes
does,
beautiful
right?
sense.
So anyway, I'm going to say that if ALA increases my telomeres, I'm taking it. So these are all these are the wonderful.
There's no harm done. That's for sure.
No harm done. There's and study after study. There's really no side. I'm going to give you real quick. This is just a summary of clinical trials. For example, diabetic patients with neuropathy. What did it do? It reduced neuropathic symptoms. Go down here. Diabetic patients improved endothelial dependent vasoconstriction. What are we saying? That's exactly what we're talking about. Obese patients. It reduces body weight, here's another study, reduced body weight and waist circumference. There's another study, reduced body mass index and fat mass, reduced circulating levels of saturated fatty acids. Okay, even in schizophrenia, they said they reduced the psychiatric rating scale, and as a side benefit, they found it decreased fasting glucose levels, which goes back to the previous slide where I said so much research shows that ALA facilitates glucose metabolism and probably decreases insulin resistance. And
let me ask you, because I know one of the side effects of a lot of schizophrenic medication or mood disorder medications is the development of increased glucose, maybe insulin resistance and weight gain. So people who are on these medications, these antipsychotics, may have some benefit, right, from taking ALA to help with that.
Exactly. You try it. It's not anything that you're going to put into your body that's going to cause side effects or cause untoward events.
Sure.
These dietary supplements are really just active forms of mostly just B vitamins, right? I mean, not alpha-lipoic acid, but methylfolate and methylcobalamin are B9, B12. Correct. So even in this study was on liver transplantation, and they found that there were less inflammatory grafts and protection against low oxygen and oxidative stress in patients who had liver transplants. Multiple sclerosis, it improved walking performance, and it decreased pro-inflammatory cytokine levels. So it reduces those chemical mediators that are perpetuating the inflammation. I'm so sorry for people that do have MS, but if I had MS, I would do everything I can from a dietary standpoint to help reduce the inflammation and cytokine levels in my body. So that's about ALA. We're going to touch on a couple more, and then we'll kind of summarize. We'll talk a little bit about our products that have these ingredients in case anybody's interested. The CoQ10, I mentioned earlier that CoQ10 meaning a number of investigators in different studies, have found that CoQ10 is a booster of alpha-lipoic acid in long COVID, in helping people with long COVID. But they also found that the two of them together play complementary roles in mitochondrial function and have even stronger antioxidant actions. So CoQ10 and ALA have a no-brainer. The other thing that's interesting here is that when we're sick, either acutely or chronically, levels of CoQ10 go down. They decrease. And we have decreased cellular energy production and free radical overproduction when we have low Q10. The first time I heard about CoQ10 when my interest was piqued was back around 2000, maybe 2001. And I heard on the radio that President George W. Bush, that his physician had asked him, he had started to take CoQ10, and it was more for cardiovascular protection. So, and it had to do with free radicals and inflammation, right? So I thought, wow, that's pretty cool that the President of the United States has taken this. And over the years, CoQ10 has just become more and more common, more and more recognized as having a true role in health. The inflammasome complex is something else that happens when we don't have enough CoQ10, and it's this is implicated in fibromyalgia. So patients with fibromyalgia definitely want to take CoQ10, I think, and they'll take ALA as well. Now, all these good things that are going on, I'm talking about CoQ10, this potent antioxidant is compromised by its fear of water, its instability, hydrophobicity is the word, its instability to light, and its thermal ability. That means you want it to be stored in a bottle where it's not going to be subject to moisture. It's going to be in a dark bottle, and it's going to be in a cool place. So you take an encapsulated or gel cap form that's going to be in cool storage, and if you put oil in the formulation, we found out that it facilitates absorption. All this stuff all these attributes are in our CoQ10, by the way, because we've learned from this. And then the last one I want to talk about, I will mention two more after this, is N-acetylcysteine, NAC. The three of these antioxidants all have similar functions with respect to reducing oxidative stress, enhancing glutathione. There's so many commonalities among them, but there are some differences. For example, NAC is not only a potent antioxidant, but it's also a potent expectorant. So I take if you have chest congestion, guaifenesin I think works pretty good, but also NAC is a potent mucolytic agent. It reduces the viscosity and elasticity of the mucus. It can be helpful for patients who have COPD or cystic fibrosis because of its antioxidant mucolytic properties. So I don't want to go through the rest of this because I don't want to. Okay, so the big thing about NAC, the big one on the bottom of this slide, is its improvement in the assessment scale of dementia in one big study, and also in enhancement, the preservation of cognitive function. And the study that we looked at mostly was 600 milligrams for 6 months. So it doesn't happen overnight. But NAC is something that people should consider with respect to mental health, cognitive function, and memory. And if you go through all the literature and NAC, it's really head to toe. I mean, all these different organs, like similar to ALA and CoQ10. That's why we kind of group this and say, well, this is really a good antioxidant. If I'm going to take one, I'm going to take NAC. I'm going to take ALA. I'm going to take CoQ10. I'm going to take NAC. I don't take them all every day myself, but I do take them. And then we do want to mention, just to kind of tie all this in, because this is why we've put these in our products. L-methylfolate reduces homocysteine. We talked about that. Homocysteine is considered by many to be the primary marker of disease, especially cardiovascular disease, and especially among diabetic peripheral neuropathy patients. And that methylcobalamin, which is the only absorbable form of B12, orally, it's the best absorbed oral. Cyanocobalamin is in most multivitamin supplements that you see, but cyanocobalamin is very poorly absorbed. Whereas methylcobalamin and L-methylfolate, they cross the blood-brain barrier. They have so many good, I'm not going to go through all these, but improved blood flow, reduced weakness, reduced tiredness, counter oxidative stress, goes on, elevated mood. which is the ad was on de novo plus B12, and then reducing cancer risk. So what practical sense? Okay, you're talking about basically 5 antioxidants, but really we're talking about antioxidants that we've done a lot of research on that really have some good clinical literature review validity. So ALA, let's try to summarize this. ALA is more widely distributed. It's really useful in diabetic peripheral neuropathy, obesity, glucose insulin control in diabetes mellitus 2, may slow aging. So many benefits of ALA, goes on and on. That whole page that we had plus another slide. CoQ10 can go down. CoQ10 levels can go down when we're sick.
Yeah.
And CoQ10 is needed for cellular energy production. Great for heart as a preventative antioxidant in cardiovascular function. NAC we talked about, mostly for preservation of cognitive function and memory. Mm-hmm. It's also an expectorant, surprisingly. And methylcobalamin, which is the absorbable form of vitamin B12, and L-methylfolate, which is the absorbable form of folate. Remember that 32 to 65% of the population, depending upon ethnicity, mostly Hispanic and Asian, right, have more MTHFR, methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase, which is an enzyme we need to break folic acid down. Well, what do you see in most of the multivitamins? Folic acid. It's only good if you have MTHFR, and if you don't have it, if you have a deficiency, you're not going to absorb it. And if you don't have enough folate, you're going to see what they say here is that folate plays a key role: brain's proper functioning, nervous system, improved blood flow, elevated mood, cognitive function, all these benefits of folate. But what good is it if what you're taking is not being absorbed?
Absolutely.
So that's why we have Absolutely. So in going to a few of our products, and then we'll close out here in the next. Do we have like 5 more minutes? What's our timing?
Yes. Good? Yeah, we can go up.
Okay. So Nufola, we have 3.75 milligrams of L-methylfolate, which is, as we said, the active folate, B9. We also put in B6 for energy and for blood flow. We put in 1 milligram, which is 1,000. People get confused on this. 1,000 micrograms is 1 milligram of methylcobalamin. Right. That's the active form of B12. We have 300 milligrams of alpha-lipoic acid. So someone who takes 1 Nufola a day, they're getting 300, which is the studies I showed in that one, there's 3 slides. It showed dosages of 300 milligrams of alpha-lipoic acid being sufficient. But if you take 2, that's 600 milligrams. And there are a few trials that show that 600 milligrams really work better. So the way to take Nufola is take 1 or 2 capsules a day, either 30 minutes before a meal or 2 hours after a meal. And the reason for that is that alpha-lipoic acid, which is a key ingredient in Nufola, is affected if we take it with food. It's not absorbed as well as if you take it on an empty stomach. So that's why you take it 30 minutes before a meal, 2 hours. And de novo plus B12, whereas we have 4 ingredients in Nufola, de novo plus B12 is more geared towards mood elevation. And that's why we have 15 milligrams of L-methylfolate instead of 3.75. 3.75 milligrams of L-methylfolate is okay for blood flow and repair of nerves, but 15 milligrams is what you want if you're trying to improve serotonin, your positive upper neurotransmitters, norepinephrine, for example. Those are the brain neurotransmitters that help make people feel better and improve symptoms of sadness. Both cross the blood-brain barrier. De novo is 1 capsule a day. Here's a picture of Nufola. We have a new label now. Nice little background and this is the same label, same background we have in all our dietary supplements. Here's the Novo Plus B12 label. Here's the CoQ10 label. Here's the NAC label. And by the way,
perfect.
People are talking about nature's Ozempic as berberine. We have this also. And what does this do? It helps big time.
We're going to spend a whole show on this one coming up, I have a feeling.
On berberine? Well, we put chromium and cinnamon in here too, because because chromium helps
Nice.
control the appetite. Cinnamon
Yes.
is just a really good overall
Yes.
supplement. But the berberine
Yes.
helps to brown white fat, which helps it, and also may help reduce fat storage, fat cells. So it is, in fact,
Beautiful.
people in literature, I've read this in more than one place, they refer to this now as nature's Ozempic. So that's pretty cool. So all this,
I believe it.
it sounds really good. I've got just a few testimonials here that I can read and then summarize. But a nurse practitioner said the Nufola, it's all about improved blood flow. It's great for neuropathy, but 2/3 of my patients are over 60 and things slow down when you start reaching that age. I tried it for ringing in the ears like you suggested on a few patients. They said it worked. This product, Nufola, is my recommended vitamin dietary supplement for all my 60-year-old plus patients. Nufola equals improved blood flow, which equates to more blood and oxygen to all of the body, which means I have healthier patients. A patient in Ohio started taking de novo plus B12. Said, after a short period, said, I've had some of the best days of my life. I feel like I am the total me again. A functional medicine doctor, God, that's what we love. This is why we do this. This is why we do it. I mean, if we don't have products that help people, if we can't get this positive feedback, I don't care. I don't need to go to work. I don't want to go. I want to go to work because I love it.
Why do it?
Functional medicine physician in Tennessee who has MTHFR deficiency stated that after just a few days after de novo plus B12, I noticed a difference. This is a doctor telling us my energy level remarkably better, and I enjoy my days so much more. It's a drudgery when you're trying to do work and you don't have the energy. Everything is a chore, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, absolutely. I'll add my testimonial on there because I had, brain fog. I have MTHFR and just at some point developed a lot of brain fog and, palpitations and energy difficulties. I just really, life was getting tough. And I have taken de novo now since I've known you now, the last 1.5 or 2 years, and it has changed my world. And I've now tested more for patients for MTHFR, found their difficulties, have treated them, and they feel amazing. So this has affected so many people. And great. There's a great testimonial right there. It's really affected me and my family and my patients' lives as well.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So glad that we could be helpful. And the last one I want to say is there's a physician in Alabama that explained that one of her DPN patients came in after starting on Nufola, not too long. His feet were feeling good. He had no more pain or numbness. The patient has been on Nufola for 4 months, one capsule BID, that's twice a day, and is now off Lyrica. Now, here's the significance of that.
Yes.
The physician said Nufola actually helps the healing process and not just the patient's symptoms of pain and numbness. And that's what we want. We want to help patients with diabetic peripheral neuropathy restore the function of blood flow and nerve function in their feet so they don't step on nails that are sticking out of wood without knowing.
And have amputations then. That's where that leads us to amputations. So no more of that.
No, exactly right. Yeah. Here's a real life example. This foot was in a conveyor, and the physical therapist said, you're never going to do all the stuff you want to do. And here's the foot. And a lot of this is not only
beautiful
thankfulness to God for healing, but also Nufola therapy that helped restore. Absolutely. And then, so this is our summary slide. You take Nufola and de novo plus B12. Nufola's got 4 essential antioxidants in it. De novo plus B12 has 2. Yeah. And then we have CoQ10 and NAC separately. But what are we talking about here? We're talking about improving the effectiveness and health of our heart and our blood vessels, improving our nerve function, especially in our legs and feet, give people more energy so they can go about their days and be more productive, help preserve cognitive function and memory, have a better outlook on life, all of this for virtually no side effects. What are we talking about? Better and longer quality of life is really what we want, right? And we want to do it so it's not expensive. It's not expensive. Go on a website, go on magnaweb.com, and you can see our prices. Okay?
Beautiful.
So
Beautiful.
All farmer grade. You don't just compare price. You got to have products that are made to farmer grade and GMP facilities. And that's what.
And I hope people understand and know me by now that I am not going to align with people who are out to sell you, who are out to join that mega $1 trillion, weight loss industry and get well now industry of things that they can't rely on, products they can't rely on. So if you know me very well at this point, I'm associating with somebody wonderful. And you guys are it. I appreciate you so much, Dr. Lesser, for coming on. This is some great information. Absolutely fantastic information. So magnaweb.com. Yeah, so magnaweb.com and then drpbetterlife.com. You can find, again, our previous information on the de novo in detail and more information there, and mood and depression as well that you spoke of. And so, yeah, Dr. Lesser, anything else today?
Well, I'm so glad to be here, and we're so happy to help people and to try to make them feel better, increase their quality of life, maybe increase their days on this planet. So,
absolutely,
and do it with quality products that don't cost a lot of money, because we don't have a big overhead, so we don't have to charge a lot. So.
Absolutely. You are that in a nutshell. Absolutely here to help. And we appreciate that so much, as am I. So again, drpbetterlife.com, please visit, and you can find MagnaWeb. You can also find more information, more shows, and we appreciate it. Dr. Lesser, we're going to have you on again, and I hope everybody has a wonderful week. Thank you.
You've been enjoying The Better Life with Dr. Mary Ann Pinkston. For more information, go to drpthebetterlife.com. That's drpthebetterlife.com. And listen next week for The Better Life with Dr. Pinkston.